Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the second episode of Worms RC. If you watched the first episode, I mentioned that I would be doing some upcoming videos on the TRX4, some of the accessories and upgrades that I've done to it, and the reasons why I've done it. Now, as many of you know, if you watched the first video, I talked about how I've built real trucks, and I really enjoy the scale realism that these little trucks bring to the hobby. Now, this TRX4 is nowhere near stock. As far as electronics go, I haven't done any upgrades. And there's a couple reasons for that. So I like that this was a crawler right out of the box. I like that it had the locking differentials, the 2-speed transmission. I thought that was awesome features because that gave me a lot more options of what I could do with this truck. And since I've built real trucks and had different things I want to do with them, like I built mud trucks, I built crawler trucks, and then I built like a driving truck. Like I wanted to build something that could do a little bit of everything. So I've incorporated those ideas into my build on this truck. So to start out with, the first thing you can see for my outside appearance is this exoskeletal roll cage that I built. And the reason that I built that is because I appreciate this body so much with its fine details, because I actually have real square body Chevy trucks. I can really appreciate like the handles being right, the mirrors being right, you know, like the stickers, the tail lights, all that stuff is just so cool and so right. I didn't want to wreck it, so I wanted to find a way that I could actually try and protect that a little bit. Because when I first started driving it, I rolled it a few times and I almost cried because I was like, oh my god, that is such a nice body, like I don't want to wreck it. So I actually built this, and I've repaired it, and I've purposely not painted it just for this video so you can actually see it. This is actually all made out of cooking skewers, like for making shish kebabs or that kind of stuff, whatever. So what I did was I actually just kind of started out with laying my first pieces down here along the bottom, because I thought I want this to kind of sit on with the body so that it looks right, but I don't want to make anything permanent. I don't want to make anything that's attached to the body or to the truck. I want to be able to take the body off, change the battery, work on whatever I have to do, and not have a pain in my butt. So I made it all out of these barbecue skewers, and then I hot glued all the pieces together, which took a lot of time and a lot of playing around with the design to try and make it look scale for the truck. Because if any of you have ever actually looked at, built, or worked on the real things, obviously you want to try and keep it cool looking but still functional. So I built this with intention of functional. Now that I've played with it for a while, I think I'm going to be trying to find a way to make this out of metal. And I haven't figured out how I'm going to do that yet, but I'm working on it. But the way it is, it's actually worked very well. And this is only actually broken twice in the 2 years that I've been playing with it on the truck. And the last time that it broke, when it rolled down a hill, it actually hit a tree and smashed. Which, I mean, it's hot glue and skewers, so it was a pretty quick, easy fix. But it did save the mirrors, the sides of the body from getting banged up, destroyed, or scratched. So very, very happy with that. Now, how I did it to actually attach it to make it stay on the vehicle was I made it tight fit front and at the rear, so that at the back here you can kind of see this bar actually kind of clips underneath of the window tailgate mechanism here. So it kind of sits tight onto it. So you kind of have to stretch it as you put it on. And then at the top, I actually laid this was actually a piece of cardboard that I made up to get my template for my holes for the actual body pins. And then I reinforced it with popsicle sticks and glue, and then attached my actual skewers on top of that to be able to fasten it to the body. So now you just set it on over top of the body, put in your body pins in the regular spots, front and back, and then it's completely removable so that you don't have to put up with something that's a pain in the butt. I wanted to keep it nice and simple. So now we'll tear this off of here, pull the body off, and we'll start showing off some of these other options and accessories that I've done. So, to get started here, like I said, the electronics are still stock. I didn't see a point in replacing them. I thought I'll play with it, I'll break it, and then I'll fix it, upgrade it as I go as far as the electronics go. But mechanically, I wanted this thing to be, I wanted to be able to mud bog it, I wanted to be able to pull a trailer with it. I wanted to be able to crawl a little bit with it. I wanted to lift it so that it had some better ground clearance. So this thing actually has the 1-inch TRX4 lift kit in it. And I was actually very skeptical when I first did my research on the lift kit, because I had read a review that said once you did it, it wasn't removable. Something about the way they did the track bar mount to the frame wasn't, like you couldn't reverse it. Once it was done, it was done. Well, once I got the kit and started looking at it and installing it, I realized that no, this is completely reversible. You can take the kit back out if you want to and go back to stock. It's not a big deal. They didn't make anything that was a permanent change. There's no drilling holes to make it fit. It's all bolt-in. It does take some time to install it, but it is very, very doable and quite straightforward to actually install. So yes, it has the 1-inch TRX4 lift kit in it. I highly recommend. It's just as good a quality as the stock parts in my mind. It is a lift kit. It is not a long travel kit like they advertise. But again, I wasn't after the long travel. I do a little bit of crawling, but I don't have a ton of rocks around here to actually crawl a lot on. So it wasn't really, that wasn't my big drawing card. I want it to be an everything truck. So that being said, one of the first upgrades I did was I wanted to go to bigger tires right away. I was like, I want to have 2.2s. I want to go to some sort of a mud tire. I found these Super Swamper lookalikes on Amazon, and then I put them on these rims. I actually had plastic rims. I'm not sure where they are right now, but I put them on these rims because I like them a little bit better. The reason that I wanted to go to a 2.2 is because I was after just a little bit more ground clearance. When I first got it, the truck sat quite low, and I didn't really appreciate, like it was probably down about here, I would say, and it just wasn't what I was after. So I did the 2.2s, and then I was having problems with, they were rubbing my fender wells all the time. Didn't matter what I did, they were always catching on here because they were just too big. It was silly. So the first thing that I actually did before I got the lift kit was I did my own body lift, which I can't really show you without tearing into it too much, but I can give you an idea of what I did. So what I did was I actually took off these body mount posts, pulled them straight out of there, and then I drilled new holes down lower where there wasn't holes in the plastic to lift it up. Especially this front one, I believe, didn't have any options for any more holes. So I put it as far up as I could safely, drilled my new holes to set my body height, which actually worked out to just about 1/2 inch of body lift height. And then to make my sliders match right, I pulled them off and I built some little bushings to go underneath of there to actually hold these at the right height, which was, I think it was like 3/8 of an inch of actual up on these. Made it so the body could still sit down into the little groove in the step properly, which made it actually look appropriate. And then we get to the bumpers, because when you do a body lift, the bumpers don't line up. So I started playing around with, I've got these cute little aluminum bumpers off of Amazon. So I wasn't too worried about trying to make it look stock, obviously, because I've gone to these now. So what I did was, when the body got the lift in it, obviously it's up here now, and the bumper's down here. It didn't line up and look right anymore. So what I did was I took the front bumper mount, moved it to the back, because it's not as much of a drop bracket as the back original one was. So I mounted it on the back, which brought my back bumper up to the perfect height for the back. And then when we go to the front, this bumper actually mounts to the side of the frame rails with just these bars back. Which brings me to my next point here. So what I did was I brought it in, bolted it to the side into, obviously I didn't have the back, or I didn't have the front bumper cross support in here anymore. So I brought the one from the front, or from the back up to the front, and then I re-drilled the holes, put a little bit bigger bolts in so that I could have this sitting on the front, which hangs down low. There is a reason for that. I will get to it in a second here. But since it sits this way, I actually just kind of bent my brackets a little bit until my bumper was at the right height to match to the body lift. So now it sits at the right height, the back sits at the right height, my sliders are at the right height, and everything looks appropriate when it's on. So this truck actually has a total of 1 inch and almost a half of actual lift to it, which, as anybody knows, the higher you go, the more you have to try and get your center of gravity back down low, which brings me to all of these brass upgrades that I've done to try and get my weight back down low. So this has inner and outer portal covers done in brass, and then I did the C's in brass, the diff covers in brass. The back, it got the inner and outer portals, plus I'm not sure what you would actually call this little piece that actually bolts it to the axle, but that's done in brass as well. And then the diff cover, again, brass. And I guess that's part of the reason for why I went to the aluminum rims as well, is because they weighed just a little bit more than the plastic rims that I had, all just to try and get my center of gravity down low, which worked amazing. So now when it actually does crawl over something, it's got enough weight down low that it doesn't want to just tip. And then I took it a step further. Since I went to these rims, they were a little bit different offset than my original plastic rims that I had these tires on. So then I ran wheel spacers, and I've played around with that a little bit. I tried 8mm wheel spacers first, but that wasn't quite enough. So now I've got the 12mm wheel spacers in here, which has really bumped it out. And when the body's on, you can see that over half my tire is out past the body, which looks really, really cool. My latest upgrade that I've done was the skid plates, which, by the way, most of these upgrades have all come off of Amazon. My skid plates, again, are off of Amazon as well. They're actually stainless steel, and they bolt right on, lined up nicely. These bolt right on as well. The front one, I think I actually switched it and put the front one on the back and the back one on the front because of my strange bumper upgrade thing here. I actually just bolted it right to the bracket for the bumper, which worked out perfect. Which, when you get a front view, also shows these two slots for the original front bumper. Just kind of lift this up here, some better light. That way you can see still line up perfect. Now the reason I've done that is because I also have a snowplow for the front end of this thing that I lift up and down via my winch. It goes into there, and since this is the drop one from the back, it actually dropped it to the perfect height to make up for the lift kit so that my snowplow actually still touches the ground when it's on the front end of my truck. So that worked out pretty well. My winch, again, another Amazon product. The original control box that came with this winch, because it was just a cheap winch kit, when I first plugged it in to the wiring of the truck, as fast as I plugged it in, it smoked and caught fire. So I panicked, and obviously with the expense of these trucks, did not want to try that again. So what I actually did was I got a different control box altogether. Again, Amazon, but just a different control box. It's just like the RC four-wheel drive one. Very similar, but I don't believe it's the same, I guess. Doesn't have the logo or anything, but it looks just like it. Anyway, instead of risking plugging into the truck's wiring, I actually just cut off the ends, ran it over to a 9 volt battery plug end, and then when I want to play, I just plug my battery in, slip it right here in the front so that it can sit there, and it keeps it completely separated from my actual wiring of the truck. What else have I done to this thing? I think that's kind of it mechanically for now. Like I said, I haven't played around with the electronics. I do have a friend with the same truck. We've replaced some electronic stuff on his, like the little mini servos for the diffs, and his steering servo. That stuff is all gonna be getting changed on mine, but I'm waiting until I blow it. Like I said, I don't crawl it hard or very often. It's mostly an everything truck, so sometimes it's in the mud, sometimes it's crawling over a few little rocks or dirt obstacles, but I don't beat on it. It's expensive. It's fun to enjoy and do several different things with. So yeah, it's just kind of it's an everything truck. It's not just a one thing truck. I did change out my shock oil I went to a little bit heavier oil in the back just to kind of make up for when it's pulling the trailer. Oh yeah, the other part that comes with the lift kit was you have to change the pinion gear and the motor in here. Change that, and now when you back up and nail it forward, it lifts the front end in the air, which is super fun and cool too. Obviously it does go a little bit slower when you gear it down like that, but you get more power to the ground, which is a lot more fun. I do have some more upgrade options coming in the future. Probably going to be changing out to better drive shafts, aluminum to help take up for some of the torque. All these rod lengths are all nice, solid, so I'm not worried about that stuff. But and the brass has made up for a lot of help too. I was starting to notice, like, I've had this truck for 2 years now. When I started playing with it, you know, it was getting a lot of miles on it, walking around and enjoying it. And I started to notice things like my little ball joints from the C into the portal housings was starting to, the bushings in there were starting to go, so my wheels were starting to sit kind of funny. And now that I've got it all freshened up and it has brass bushings in there, you can see it's a lot tighter and the front end sits straight and true the way it's supposed to. Which is something else that I really enjoyed about this lift kit, was they actually took into consideration proper geometry. So the track bar and the drag link actually are in perfectly, parallel to each other. One thing that I will say for anybody looking to do upgrades as far as brass on your TRX4, watch when you're getting your inner portal housings for the front. A lot of the ones out there that I've seen advertised don't have this bottom piece, they just show the top. And the stock TRX4 parts have both the top and the bottom, because they kind of put your tie rod right in between there and then your drag link on top. What worried me was with having the bigger tires and then eventually going to upgrade the servo, I'm going to have a lot more torque sideways on these. And I was worried that if it was only through that one tab, you would essentially end up either breaking it or wearing it off, because you had so much stress on one little piece that was meant to be pinched through two. So I did find these on Amazon after a little bit of looking around and research, the ones that I actually wanted. They took a lot longer to get here, but it was well worth the wait because they're definitely what I wanted. So I would say definitely watch for that if you're going to be doing any upgrades on your stuff, just to really make sure that you're getting what you want. I'm sure the other one works fine, but I just really wanted to make it right while I was building it. Yeah, I've got some cute little LED lights in here. They're okay. I don't know. These ones are white. They look kind of cool. The way I have them wired right now, they're on the whole time the truck's on, which is kind of annoying, so I'm probably going to change that out later to something different. The back does have red lights back here. Again, they're on when the truck's on, which is kind of neat, but kind of annoying at the same time. I do not have a light kit for the body on the truck. I think they're really cool, but when I've watched videos on, like, when they're installed, how you get the body on and off, it just kind of looks like a bit of a pain in the butt. And I like being able to just take it off, work on it, and I don't know. It's maybe in the future, maybe not. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, here's a quick show of the flex on it. So there's my full fist, plus still got contact on 3 wheels. Right there, you're just finally getting no contact, and you can almost push another fist underneath of there. So that's, I'd say, almost 6 inches of overall flex height. So that's still pretty impressive considering it's got the lift kit. But it's all about getting that center of gravity down low. That weight of the brass and then the wheel spacers really helps make up for that. I'll try and get some videos when the weather's a little bit nicer of this thing actually in action to show off what it's capable of. I'm very happy with its performance now. And like I said, I highly recommend this truck. Anybody that's looking to start getting into the hobby, do your research. That's the best advice anybody can give you, is do your research. I didn't do quite enough when I first got this truck. I was more sold on that super awesome body because I love square body Chevys, but the truth is, the more I've learned about this truck and what's out there for options, I'm glad I went with this one. I like its realism, I like its parts, I like the upgrade options available for it. So do your research. Figure out what you like, what you're gonna want your truck to do, and then what's gonna have the best platform for you to build. And for me, the biggest part of this hobby that I have the most fun with is actually just building. I love tearing stuff apart, fixing it, changing it, upgrading it, and putting it all back together. I even like when it's time to tear these things apart and grease them. Like, that's a lot of fun. And that's a video that I'll do later as well to kind of give you guys some tips on maintenance on these things. Like every time this thing goes out and I play with it, it gets washed, cleaned, wiped down, and then it gets everything that's metal wiped down with a little bit of oil on a rag just to help make it last. Which, like I said, I've had this probably 2.5 years now, but a solid 2 years of playing with it, and I still have no rust on it. So I'm very, very proud of that. That's a definite thing that I recommend, is clean and oil and look after it, and it'll last a long time. I've got some more plans in the future for some new things that I'm going to be doing. Hopefully get some more RC stuff to keep the hobby going farther and farther. Keep an eye for next week's video, guys, and we're going to have some more accessory stuff to show off. I've built some RC trailers. Hopefully it can give you some ideas to build your own. And I'll try and get the snowplow on the front end of this thing one of these days so I can show you guys how that looks and how it functions with the winch setup. I know you're supposed to use a servo for the particular snowplow that I have, but I didn't want to do it. Like I've said in my previous video, I'm not an electronics wizard. I'm sure my remote has a way of running another channel to run the servo, but I don't know how to do it. I do know how to make this winch lift it up and down though, so that's what I did. Anyway, I hope that's helped you guys. Hope this inspired some people to look at some more accessories for your TRX4 or whatever it is that you're running. If you like this, please like and subscribe, and tune in for next week's video. Thank you so much.